Starting your garden from seed is one of the most fun and rewarding things you can do as a gardener, as long as you can avoid making these 5 common mistakes. I spend a lot of time in online gardening communities, and over the years I've noticed that there's really 5 common mistakes that people are making when they start seeds that can impact the success of their garden. In this video, I'm going to run through those 5 common mistakes and how to avoid them, and at the end I'll give you one more quick tip just to make your seed starting experience that much better. So do me a favor, hit like on this video and we will get right into the first common mistake. So the first common mistake that I'm seeing gardeners make an awful lot is starting their seeds at the wrong time, either too early or too late. But what is the wrong time? Well, there's a really easy way to figure that out. So there's a couple of pieces of information you need to know to figure out when to start your seeds inside. This is specifically to people who are going to be starting seeds inside in something like this because it's still too cold outdoors, or maybe it's snowing like it is here in Colorado right now. And so to figure out when you start those seeds indoors, you need to know when is your average last frost date. So you can find that, just go on Google, look it up, average last frost date, put in your zip code, it'll tell you. In my case, it's about May 4th, typically. And then you need to look at the seeds and understand when do they need to be planted. Usually that information will be on the back of the seed packet. It'll tell you, hey, sow these seeds 8 to 10 weeks before last frost, or 4 to 6 weeks before that average last frost date. Those are the 2 pieces of information you need. So look on the seed packet, it'll tell you how many weeks back to count on your calendar, and that's the day you start your seeds. It's really that simple. Why don't you want to start them too early? Some people think, well, if I'm supposed to start them 10 weeks early, I'm going to start them, 12 or 14 weeks before that last frost, and then I'll have great big plants going out into the garden. That can work, but a lot of times you're transplanting your seedlings into something like this, right? This 3.5-inch pot. This isn't big enough to grow a huge plant. And so unless you want to transplant them out of this and into a bigger container somewhere along the way before they even get outside, it's not worth it. If you leave them in this container, the plant gets stressed, the roots get all bound up, they hit the edge of the container, and it actually can often trigger the plant to think that it needs to go into reproductive mode. So oftentimes if you're growing things like peppers or tomatoes and you leave them in a small container for too long, you'll see them flower and fruit, which you don't want before you put them out in the garden, right? It interrupts the growth cycle. It interrupts that typical period of vigorous vegetative growth that most plants have that you want to be taking advantage of out in the sunshine once you put them out in your garden. If you start too late, well, you just might not have big enough plants to transplant, and depending on how long your grow season is outdoors, you might end up with plants that never get to maturity because you started them 2 weeks before your last frost and you put things outside that were this big and then they didn't have time to grow. So timing, crucial. It's also really easy. Make sure you know when to plant the seeds that you have. The second most common mistake that I see people fighting with is temperature. At what temperature are you starting these seeds? Are you heating them up to help them germinate? Are they too cold sitting in a basement? Temperature is key. So when a seed germinates, it's really about moisture and temp for most plants. That's what triggers that germination process. Sometimes you need light, sometimes you don't. It really kind of depends on the plant, but in almost every seed, moisture and temperature are super, super critical to fostering the germination process. So if you have seeds that are too cold or too hot, they're not going to germinate. So again, you're going to have to do a little bit of research depending on what you're growing. It might say on the seed packet itself. If not, just Google the type of plant that you're growing, right? You don't have to be specific. If it's a pepper, just Google what temperature do pepper seeds like to germinate at. It'll give you a range. It might tell you, between 75 and 85 degrees is ideal. Do the same thing for tomatoes, brassicas, right? Cucurbits. You can find that information pretty easily. The first thing you'll really want to do though is understand the temperature of where you're growing. If you're growing in a grow tent or some enclosed space like that, you probably have a little bit more control over the temp. But if you're just growing in an open area, a part of your house, maybe a basement is a very common spot where people are starting their seeds this time of year. Be aware of the temperature. Get a little thermometer and hygrometer. I like the little Govee ones here. They're Bluetooth, so I can check it from my phone. I can tell, hey, look, the seedling tent is at whatever temperature and whatever humidity, and I can adjust accordingly. A lot of people use seedling heat mats to control the heat, and so this is just a plastic mat, and I don't have one out right now because I've actually stopped using them personally. I'll tell you why in a minute, but they're really handy, right? They can be a very good tool to make sure that you can bring up the temperature of the growing media that you have in your tray to the ideal range for that particular plant. In most cases, it's going to be somewhere in the 65 to 85 to 90 degree kind of temperatures. Hotter than that, you can kind of cook the seeds. Colder than that, well, it's not ideal for the plant. Nature tells the seed, hey, wait until the conditions are right, because when you sprout, you don't want to come out in the snow. So you can use a heat mat. There's some that are available with thermostats, so you can really get dialed in with a little probe and say, hey, my temperature, my soil is here, and the heat mat will shut off when it reaches that temperature, right? I don't do that anymore, and I'll tell you why. I grow in a grow tent, and I start my seedlings in that same tent. Because I have a nice enclosed environment, I have this really big, bright light, big, powerful grow light. That thing puts off quite a bit of heat on its own, and so I can easily keep that ambient air temperature in there with that light going at about 80 to 85 degrees just with the light. I don't run a heater. It is in my basement here, which ambient temperature is about 66, 67 degrees today inside the tent. It's plenty warm. That works for me. Just make sure you're aware of your temperature. If you're not monitoring the temperature where your seeds are germinating, you could potentially be ignoring a really easy to fix problem and then wondering why you had poor germination rates, or maybe your plants didn't even sprout. And so that takes us right into number 3. I said the 2 things a seed needs to germinate well are moisture and temperature, right? So we've covered temperature. Let's talk about moisture. You want to start seeds in a moist media. Not a wet media, not a dry media, a moist media. Evenly moistened, really. It's hard to explain, but if you squeeze it, it shouldn't be dripping and sopping wet, but it should also not be dry and crumbly. Because if it's too wet, what will happen is your seed could potentially rot in place. Oxygen is needed, and you might be suffocating or drowning that seed, especially after it's sprouted. And then you're also introducing a whole bunch of other problems by keeping that grow media too wet. You could be introducing fungus, you could be introducing mold, fungus gnats, damping off once those seeds sprout. If that media is really wet, it encourages fungal growth around that stem that can be fatal, right? You'll see these seedlings tip over and then boom, they're done. And you can see right at the soil, that little stem has been kind of disintegrated away by the fungus. So control your moisture level. I like, again, these 12 cell trays because I can control individually on this tray with the vent on the top, how much air is getting in, how much moisture is getting out. I can take the lid off once things have sprouted. You don't want to leave the dome on when you have little baby seedlings. It will actually, again, add too much moisture. This is really just to keep your media moist and keep you from having to water too much while you're waiting for those seeds to germinate and sprout. Moisture control is key. Don't just assume that you're watering, they're fine. They might be too wet. And if they're too dry, you'll notice that the seeds won't sprout either because they need that moisture. It kicks off those biological processes that tell the seed, hey, look, it's nice and warm. I'm feeling nice and moist. It loosens up that seed casing and makes it easier for the roots to break out. Really important. If you're not monitoring your moisture and you're not doing a good job watering properly, you're going to have a tough time germinating seeds. Mistake number 4 that people are making is not giving their plants enough light. Now, a lot of seeds don't need light to germinate. That's true. Some do, right? And hopefully your seed packet will tell you that so you know, and you surface sow those ones usually. But seeds that you tend to plant, a 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/2 of an inch down into your trays here, they don't need light to germinate. But the second that plant sprouts, it needs light to photosynthesize. And if you don't have light for that plant to photosynthesize, you know what it's going to do? It's going to grow really tall, really fast, trying to find the sun. So you'll see people posting pictures and they say, why do my seedlings look so tall? Maybe they're even flopping over. We call that legginess typically in the gardening community. We say those are some leggy seedlings, right? That happens because they're searching for light. Typically, there's a few other reasons that can happen, but the most common is that they're searching for light. The other problem that you'll see sometimes with leggy seedlings relates to temperature. If you leave a heat mat on underneath your seedlings, they will actually grow too fast trying to get away from that heat. So don't use a heat mat unless you absolutely need to. And if you need to, you turn it off as soon as your seedlings have sprouted. That is just for germination. Side note, I probably should have mentioned earlier. But for light, you can't go wrong by adding artificial light. A lot of people will say, hey, I'm just going to use a bright, sunny, south-facing window. And in some cases, and for some plants, that can work. You need really good sunlight, and you need as much of it as possible. That's tough to do in a lot of climates this time of year. It's often gray, cloudy, snowy, You've got, a bad angle of the light. It's not as intense as it is during the summer. So using the sun is really not my recommendation. I think people that rely on sunlight to grow their seedlings after they've germinated their seeds are typically going to struggle a little bit to get those plants enough light. So use a grow light. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You can use fluorescent tube lights, you can use LED tube lights, shop light type things, right? The key is just getting the plants a good, strong light source for a good part of the day, right? Give them 16 to 18 hours of light a day and they will be happy with you in most cases. If you're growing a specialty plant, maybe you need to adjust that, but as soon as it sprouts, it wants light. That's how plants grow, right? They turn sunlight and water basically into sugars that they can then use to grow and provide energy for the rest of the plant. Get a grow light. It's an investment up front. I have, the big one that I mentioned in my tent. This thing is massive, but it also will grow plants all the way to maturity. I can grow full life cycle plants in that tent. So I can have harvests of tomatoes and peppers in the middle of the winter if I want. But for seed starting, you can get away with a less expensive light for sure, or set of lights if you want. So something like this is part of a 6-light set from Barina. This is a very popular light or lighting system for gardeners because it's pretty affordable. I don't remember the exact cost. I got these a couple of years ago, but there's 6 of these. In this case, these are 2-foot length bulbs. You can connect them so they only have one plug if you have them all in one spot, but you can then cover a lot of area. I'm starting a couple hundred seeds this year, so I need to make sure I have lots of light coverage. I will probably use these outside of my tent for an auxiliary seed starting space. Get something like this. You can also see LED panel lights. I've got several of those, right? Like the one in my tent. There's also smaller ones, more affordable. Just pay attention to how much light your plants are getting the second that they sprout, and you will have a much better time with your seed starting. And the last mistake that I see way too many gardeners making is not understanding how much space you need to actually start your seeds and keep them indoors for potentially a couple of months before they can go out in the garden. So you start with something like this nice little tray. It's got 12 little, they're about what, an inch and a half wide cells. Cool. 12 little plants right here, no problem. But then all 12 of those plants are quickly going to need to be transplanted up into something like this 3.5-inch pot, right? I use these because I can fit 18 of them easily in your standard 10 by 20 tray. But now it takes one of these, right? It's a much bigger footprint for each one of those little cells. So all of a sudden this becomes a much bigger problem. And in some cases, even having 18 of these in a 10 by 20 tray has been a problem for me. The plants, after 10 to 12 weeks of growth indoors, by the time May hits, when I'm getting ready to take them out in the garden, they're pretty big, right? I can have plenty of plants that are a foot, maybe even a little bit taller than a foot tall for pepper plants. They're bushy, they're branching out, they're running into each other. And so sometimes you even have to spread these out to have proper grow space, get good airflow through before they go outside. So think about that. Don't wait and say, I'll figure that out when it happens. Have a plan. Get a space ready, especially again, if you need to worry about things like temperature or making sure you can get light on them. Have a plan for how much space all of your plants are going to take. But now most people probably aren't starting several hundred seeds at a time like I do and several of my other pepperhead friends are. But even if you're doing a dozen plants, just make sure you're aware of how much space that's going to be once they're transplanted up into something like this. A lot of people use like red solo cups. They're very similar in size to this. So you can get a good amount of soil in there, and that'll keep a plant happy until about 10 weeks of growth. Anything more than that, it's going to get stressed and you're going to have to pot it up. And if that's the case, if you started too early and you're going to have to pot up into something bigger than this, like maybe a 1-gallon pot or something, make sure you have space. So those are the 5 most common mistakes I see people making when they're doing seed starting. And I promised you up front that I'll give you one other little tip to make your seed starting a lot easier. Build a system for tracking your plants, where you put what, that's reusable and easy to go back and reference, right? And so what I do is really simple. I create a grid system on everything I do, from these seed trays to these plant pots, all the way out to my garden. I can track in a single spreadsheet where that seed is by knowing it's in tray number 13, A1, for example, right? So I put physically on my containers, I give everyone a unique number, and then a grid system. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D in my case, since I'm using these 12 cells. Same thing with these pots. You'll see this one says I16. Because my big 10, 20 trays that these go into each have a unique identifier. I happen to label those with letters because I was inconsistent in my system. Something I could go back and fix, but whatever. You do however you want to do. Just make sure it has a unique name. You could call your trays, you know, Bob, Joe, and Mark if you want, if you have 3 trays. Just so long as you can uniquely identify them. And then how many plants you're going to have in there. In my case, it's 18. So I have I1 through 18 labels that I put on these pots. This is season 3 for a lot of these things, so they've been washed. They hold up fine, right? If you use a laser printer, that ink won't run. I even take it one step further. Because these are removable inserts, you don't want to accidentally turn it the other way, and all of a sudden your plants are reversed. So I put a little mark on it. A notch here, a notch here. As long as those are aligned, it's in the right orientation. You can use labels if you want. If you want to use plant labels, you know, I've got some laying around here somewhere, but I'm not going to grab them because I don't use them typically. Plant labels are tedious. They are, let's see, like I said, I'm doing 200 varieties between peppers and tomatoes this year. So do I really want to hand write out 200 tags? I don't. I really don't. Depending on what you write on them with, you've got to get a UV safe and a waterproof marker. Make sure you do that. Sharpies, these are great. They will fade very, very quickly in the sun. With repeated waterings, you'll start to wear it down. Next thing you know, you don't have a label on your plant. In my case, I know where everything is. From seed to transplant to out in the garden, it's got a numerical location. In the garden, I do put tags just because I like to be able to quickly reference and say, oh, this is this specific type of pepper or tomato. But even if I don't, let's say that tag blows away in a terrible storm, I can pull up my spreadsheet, my garden map, and I can say right here, that was actually, you know, a blue Zimmer tomato micro tomato. Of course it was. Piece of cake. So avoid those mistakes. Build yourself a really easy to use system that you can and will maintain so that you know where everything is planted. That'll save you a little bit of time and having to do a bunch of plant labels. And just remember, nail your timing. Make sure you have the right temperature for your seeds. Make sure you have the right moisture level to support germination. Make sure you get a good light on those seedlings as soon as they emerge. And plan for your space. You're gonna have a lot of fun starting seeds this year. I know I am. I can't wait to get everything going here. For me, I start in February because that's 10 to 12 weeks out from my last frost date, which is what most of my peppers need. Tomatoes, I'll start later in February or early March because they don't need quite as much lead time and they really like to go outside when it's warm. This is gonna be a great season. You're gonna have a great time growing. If you enjoyed this video or if you found it helpful, please consider subscribing, hit the little like button, it does a lot. Leave me a comment, and remember, plants help us grow.